Hey, detective, can I, speak to you for a moment?
Sure, what's on your mind?
Well, it's about the lamb sauce case. I just feel like there's something missing from the case notes about the culprit's motives.
What do you mean? It's Gordon Ramsay. Literally anything is possible when chefs are involved.
Well, you see, detective, it's about how you found him in the first place. At first, when I was looking back at the crime statistics, I thought to myself, well, how could someone of such high caliber... That's when I realized that those minds of the killer really does one modern fancy right shower to find or squinkless.
Okay, alright, I get it. I'll see what I can do. Now go. Bye. Jeez, what's wrong with that guy? What? Another case? Are you sure? Oh god, fine, alright. If you want to know what Inspector's story, characters, music, animation, and fun factors so badly is all about, I guess I'll investigate it, alright? Jesus, get off my back. Story. Kotoko Iwanaga is the goddess of wisdom, whose job it is to mediate conflicts between the real world and the yokai realm, with the help of her aggressively procured boyfriend Kuro Saragawa. With both the powers of immortality and precognition, they go about Japan solving problems involving the supernatural. On the surface, it seems like it would be a neat little supernatural mystery show, as they generally try to solve the conflicts by figuring out the reasoning behind a disturbance, its origins, and how to best go about solving the problem. Indeed, on top of this premise, there is also a small smattering of romance between Iwanaga and Kuro as their relationship grows. But, this show is Talk no Jutsu, the fucking anime. Episodes, and I mean episodes, are spent on just our main characters talking about the situation, just standing around having a good old chat. Oh, but what are they talking about, Zio? Is this some sort of thrilling psychological battle between the goddess and the spirits? Or are dramatic events unfolding constantly around us, continuously giving the viewer and our characters new information to try and complete their investigation? Or maybe there is constant layers of world building being done, both fleshing out the world of Inspector as well as the various spirits that inhabit it. Kind of, but no. No, they literally just stand or sit in one place for like 1.5 episodes talking about the situation and how to go about solving it. Oh, but the contents of those dialogue dumps must be the real entertainment factor for the show then. Well, most of the dialogue comes from Iwanaga deducing the multiple situations that could have taken place for the situation at hand to have begun, then constructing a narrative through these multiple scenarios, whether it be truth or fiction, that will sufficiently resolve the mystery at hand. Admittedly, it is interesting to see how constructing a plausible yet fictional narrative in order to solve a conflict can play out, but this is basically the bulk of the show. The majority of the story revolves around the main cast trying to resolve the increasingly violent Steel Lady Nanasi from wreaking havoc. In that investigation, they mostly talk about the situation for a couple episodes, trying to gather information, then engage in combat for the spirit for the last 4 episodes, while trying to construct a plausible enough scenario behind the Steel Lady to hopefully resolve the conflict. There are so many story beats and unnecessary plot threads that just make this show a nightmare to slog through. Kuro's blood is poisonous to yokai, but that really doesn't come up at all. Iwanaga has been stalking Kuro for over 2 years in hopes of sliding into his pants because, I shit you not, he reminds her of a goat. And there's a 2-year time skip, which doesn't really do anything except I think to make her legal. And it's not like I wanted to know what might have happened in that time skip or anything, you fucking baka. And it's been shown multiple times that humans can see and interact with yokai, so why hasn't the society of Inspector been more open to the idea of them existing to begin with, especially since they have real world effects on them? Whatever interesting plot threads they do manage to grab you with, it's gonna be repetitive and then they'll exposition dump. There are small elements that have potential to make this show much more engaging and immersive, and sometimes the big brain compiling of stories to solve the mystery can get interesting, but they just don't bother exploring anything of real value or drama until the very end. And even then, it's very drawn out. Characters. Alright, you have three main characters: Kodoko Iwanaga, aka the goddess of lollies, you got Kyoro Sakuragawa, aka broken romantically impaired, and then you have Saki Umahara, aka ex-lover-san. They make up the main cast of characters for the majority of the show. Kodoko Iwanaga, being that she was chosen by the yokai to be their goddess of wisdom, is our questionably legal detective investigator bullshitter that helps to solve basically everything in the show. She stalked Kuro for 2 years until he had broken up with Saki to then swoop in and become his girlfriend. And this girl is petty when it comes to interacting with anyone she deemed to be a romantic rival, aka Saki. Also unexpectedly lewd when it comes to being with Kuro, which provides basically all the comedy in the show, which admittedly drew out some chuckles from me because of how unexpected it was. Kuro Sakuragawa, being that he's immortal from consuming yokai flesh, has the most interesting backstory out of the entire cast, as his lineage was known for trying to successfully gain this power along with precognition. He's generally bland, but cares deeply for his friends and tries his best to logically help them or keep them out of harm's way whenever possible. His past relationship with Saki also makes for the most interesting personal drama moments in the show. Saki Umahara herself is a police officer who acts like the grounded reference for the viewer to relate to the most, as she is probably the most human character in the show. Being the ex of Kuro and thus the target of a lot of petty jabs for Iwanaga, Saki doesn't take shit from her and constantly counterattacks, which is a lot more interesting in writing than it is in the show. We also have a small array of side characters that make their appearance and have their own roles in the plot of the story, but they can just be summed up as plot devices. Now, the real treats that this show like to play with its characters is the awkward relationships and interactions that pop up whenever Kuro and Saki have a couple seconds alone with each other. Here we can really feel the tough struggle of a broken couple reuniting under strange circumstances that usually let the show breathe a little between exposition dumps, which is probably why they're some of my favorite moments in the show, even if they are brief. Speaking of brief, did you know that the reason they broke up was cause Kuro scared a Kappa just by being there? Yeah, he heals after every injury, but you know what? Why would that scare you off if you loved him for 4 years already? Seems superficial and dumb, and these characters are superficial, but sometimes they give just a small bit of real drama or human interactions that just make them good enough to prevent me from checking out entirely. Music. Another anime, another impossible to find OST, but don't worry, there's really only one song that should even be discussed, and that is the ending Last Dance by Mamoru Miyano. It's a fun jazzy pop song with a fantastic horn section that contains all the energy that this show has to offer. With a nice deep bass solos that change the feel of the song, it has a great evolution between the verses and chorus. It's honestly a pretty darn good song that makes you feel like you're at the climax of a great night. The OP Mononoke in the fiction by Uso to Chameleon is more of your classic rock anthem anime opening song. There's nothing bad about it. With its twisty guitars and driving vocal performance, it builds a fast tempo show starter. Unfortunately for me, it doesn't come across as anything special. It's okay, not as good as Last Dance though. Kinda generic in a way, also not gonna lie, being purely subjective here, but I just don't enjoy the vocalist's voice that much. As for the general background tracks, they play between a weird variety of creepy suspense piano and tracks I could only describe as basic fantasy filler with acoustic guitars and strings. There isn't anything here that will make you want to find the unreleased OST, it's just basic filler. They fit behind most of the scenes, but you'll never remember them being there to begin with. They don't add much to the overall enjoyment of the show at all. Animation. Well, when you have a show that's like 90% talking, you're probably not going to get anything spectacular in the animation department. But just because they are talking doesn't mean that the animation has to just be mouth flaps and the occasional head movement. You can animate the expressions of the characters as they discuss a topic, hyperbolize their movements, and so on. Or if they recount and experience a story, put your effort into painting a story of feeling. What I'm trying to say here is that there is nothing for you in the animation of Spectre. Nothing here is remarkable, from the art style to the actual movements of the characters. Even when they do try and animate something like a fight, it's bland and mediocre. There's nothing fluid, expressive, or special about the animation in this show. There really isn't anything that truly makes my eyes bleed, however. Except for the cars. Why is it so hard for shows to animate decent cars? Like, every car I see is CG, and it just doesn't look like it's from the same decade, let alone the same show in this particular case. Like, you wouldn't even be paying attention to what's going on the screen if you're watching the show unsubbed anyway, but that's neither here nor there. Don't come here looking for anything special. Fun factor. Oh boy, here we go. Let me ask you, dear viewer, why do you watch anime? I'm going to guess to be entertained, to see something not possible in real life maybe. If you watch sales at work, maybe to learn something, Dr. Stone. To behold an art form fundamentally different from the natural world, to witness a change in its being that will enhance the viewing experience in some way. I watch anime to relax and have a good time. You know what I don't consider to be a good time? Reading a book about something I just don't care about, especially about something I could easily comprehend in less words or a visual representation, something that this show seems to struggle to understand. Show don't tell, more like tell don't show. Multiple times while watching Spectre, I'll sit through a conversation that I thought might last maybe a couple minutes, then watch in horror as it expands to the entire episode. Just these characters talking about the situation and how to go about it. This isn't some political dealings, world building kind of discussions, just talking about what they should do. And then for about half an episode after that, something of actual worth will be shown happening, and I'll get excited for just a little bit. Oh, finally, something major has happened. This will surely put a fire under their asses and get them to start doing something about the problem. Only for the next episode to start and for them to keep talking. All that talking ramps up into the last few episodes as Irogana proposes a plausible scenario per episode to the nods of 4chan. It's at this point, while our poor boy Kiro gets constantly beaten to a pulp, we finally get to see a real enactment of the talking the show likes to do, albeit with a constant narration, but finally we get a visual representation that makes this anime feel like a real show. Though it's bogged down by the fact that this is incredibly repetitive and the show tries to make things grander than they actually are. The few slices of enjoyment I got from this show were from the off-color jokes, the idea of a more meaningful character drama, and the idea of creating a solution through false information. Indeed, the idea of the concept was more entertaining to me than the actual execution of the final product. There is nothing here but a hollow shell of good ideas and people talking about good ideas, which has then led to more talking about ideas than just having the main character solve everything anyway. There is no action, mystery, drama, comedy, thrillers, or even meaningful romance. Just nothing you should bother with in the slightest. Conclusions. Spectre is a show that deserves to be forgotten in the pages of irrelevancy as the seasonal show that some people saw that one time. It has good concepts, but that was basically it. Characters are uninteresting, irrelevant, or underutilized. There's only really one good song, the animation is bland, and the show isn't fun to watch when nothing happens for the majority of it. And sometimes when something does happen, it's completely irrelevant to the overall plot. Adding up and averaging all of our scores, we are presented with a final rating of 3.7 out of 10. For other recommendations, if you're looking for a halfway decent mystery show, then Invaded would probably be a good place to start on your recovery from bad taste. Then, if you were actually more interested in the idea of a detective-like person mediating troubles between the supernatural world and the human world with help from an interesting cast of characters, then could I heavily recommend Yu Yu Hakusho? Like, this show is an underrated classic that I think would be a perfect fit.
Detective, I finally figured it out. It's
a construct made from the feelings of all middle-aged moms that got caught up in watching MasterChef. I already know this.
But how did you figure it out? I spent all week investigating.
Remember when you were talking, Joe? Well, I already figured it out within like the first 2 lines of you talking back then, and I mean, it's not that hard to figure out just based on the investigation reports.
You're an asshole, detective.
Thanks for watching. If you saw Spectre, Write a comment down below about how I'm wrong and this is the greatest show from winter 2020. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed and subscribe for more content just like this. I'm Zeosphere and I'll see you in next week's review.